And good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. It's actually Town of Old Saybrook night on the Pete Mezzetti Show tonight. With me to discuss what's going on with the Town of Old Saybrook is Finance Director Leanne Palladino. Leanne, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you? Good to see you again.
I'm great. Happy to be here.
Well, thanks for coming down. And an old-time friend, the first selectman of the Town of Old Saybrook, Carl Fortuna.
Pete, good
Hi,
to see
Carl.
you
Good to see you again. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm great.
You enjoying the holidays?
I am. How about yourself?
Very much. A lot going on for everybody this time of year, you know. A lot of nights out.
There you go.
A lot of nights out.
And I see normally it's just you and I when we're talking about the town of Old Saybrook. So Carl, you brought me a new friend to
I thought,
talk to.
you know, Pete, we spend 30 minutes in here and I put your viewers to sleep. So
Oh gosh.
tonight I thought I'd bring a little life to the party and bring in the finance director. We've done this before. We had Susie Beckman on with me, and I think it's a good idea for maybe in the future also to bring in other members of the town team to show the residents who works for them. So
absolutely.
Thought that would be a good idea. So tonight we have Leanne Palladino. Leanne's been our finance director now for about 3 years. Is that right?
That's correct.
When I came into office, I was voted in November of 11. We did not have a finance director in the town of Old Saybrook. Hard to believe when you're talking about a $35 to $45 million budget, which it is now. So we had Lisa Carver as the town's first finance director. Unfortunately, Lisa passed away, and it was an opportune moment to hire Leanne on. Leanne was retiring from the state of Connecticut. Leanne can tell us and your viewers what she did for the state of Connecticut. But I can tell you that with my experience over the last 3 years, Leanne has been transformative for the town of Old Saybrook. She She eats work for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it's been a joy to work with her. And I'll pass the microphone at this point.
All right.
It's painful to do that, but I will.
It is. Leanne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, sure. So for all of my career, I've been in finance, and I've had the pleasure of working in both the private sector as well as the public sector. So the first half of my career was in the private sector. I worked in banking, and there I worked in the Treasury Management Division, where I would manage short-term funds, liquidity, do some debt offerings in the market and other types of short-term liabilities. And then I started my career in the public sector. For 10 years, I worked for State Treasurer Denise Napier in the Treasurer's office, which was a very exciting job for me. My first assignment there was to manage the short-term investment fund. Now that's a fund where municipals and state agencies can place their money, so I was working managing funds for both the state and towns. I did that just for a couple of years, but the majority of my time was spent as Chief Investment Officer, managing the Connecticut retirement plans and trust funds, which were $30 billion worth of pension assets for the teachers and the state employees and other plans and trusts. So I was able to retire, take early retirement from that position, and as Carl mentioned, I've been the finance director for the town of Old Saybrook, and likewise I enjoy working for the first selectman. We have a great working relationship together, and so that brings me here now. So I guess I would have to say I have a unique perspective because I've been able to see what it is like to work for the state and working with state finances, as well as coming here and working for the town and municipal finances.
So Pete, can I tell you how I met Leanne?
Sure.
I like telling this story. So this is the first time I'm going to interject, but not the last. Okay?
Okay.
I was golfing, and I happened to meet Leanne's husband on the golf course, and he, like Leanne, is a fine person.
Okay.
And as I was talking to Mike, walking down the fairway, I said, "Where do you live?" And he said, "I live in Old Saybrook." I said, "I'd love to get you involved in the town. You seem like a nice guy, you seem like a smart guy." And he said, "You don't want me, you want my wife." Okay? And he said she's going to be recently retired, and maybe you can talk to her. And originally I was thinking of bringing Leanne on as a volunteer on our pension board. But as it turns out, we needed a finance director, and that's how we came to hire Leanne. It was good timing.
Very
Cool.
good. Very fortunate for me too.
Very nice. You like it?
I love it.
Like working with the town?
It's great. You know, the finances of the town are very strong. The town has been well managed for a long time, and it's evident to me when I go in there, when I work on the budgets, to just see the footprint that was left by the previous finance director. She did a great job putting the budgets together. All the revenues are really tight. Expenses are carefully managed, so you know, I couldn't ask for a better launch pad than what I received, and so it's easy now for me to kind of just grow upon all the things that have been started before me.
Now, as far as the budget goes for the town of Old Saybrook, how are we looking?
We're looking great. I mean, for fiscal year 19, we're halfway through.
Okay.
We've had a very strong revenue season so far because we get half of our taxes in July, the other half in January. So you know, we've got a huge success right there, and all of our expenses are being carefully managed, and they're coming in as expected. There's no surprises. We're being able to serve our residents. We're spending. We haven't had any snowstorms or anything like that that's kind of thrown us off our game. So so far so good.
Can I interject? You know,
Sure.
Pete, one of the things we've done is with Leanne. Leanne's very IT savvy.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd talk a little bit about how we're bringing technology into town finances.
Absolutely.
So from that perspective, a lot of folks, when they think of what the finance director does, they go immediately to the budget. And obviously that's a very important and large part of my job.
Right.
But risk management, controls, that goes on all year long. We take in public funds. We take in money from our taxpayers, and we are held to a higher standard to protect those funds, those public funds. We need to properly account for them. We need to make sure that they are prudently managed and prudently spent. So, and as Carl mentioned, I love technology. So one of the initiatives that we have going on at present is it's going across all town departments, but I'll speak specifically to what's going on in the finance area. And this IT strategy has 4 pillars. First, we want to go from paper to systems. Then once we have the systems in place, we want to take a look at all of our processes and see what we can automate, heading ourselves towards best practices. We want to make sure that all the software providers that we do business with are in the cloud. So historically, we have servers at Town Hall. We have a very limited resources for IT staff, and we really just think it's safer, better risk management to have the companies that we do business with take care of our data. They have the people, the infrastructure, the redundancy, everything. So we want to put all of our data in the cloud. And then finally, the 4th pillar of the IT strategy is to get this information to end users. Right now, end users don't have access to this information. So in my case, an end user might be an employee or a department head, but other areas that we're implementing this strategy, the end user could be the people that live in the community or do business with the community, and they can get access to it 24/7 on their time. So this is really important, and it will strengthen the controls of the town. So just to go over what I've done with this initiative in my area. So we going from the paper to systems. So we did have an accounting system before. I don't want you to think that we didn't.
Okay.
But we did purchase a new system, and it had a lot more tools so that we could enhance our practices. And we were able to bring payroll in-house. So not only did we get a system that is better for us, we have more tools, but we also saved $35,000 a year by bringing payroll in-house. So even if we stopped right there,
Okay.
which we didn't, and we're not going to, the town was better off. We prudently were managing their funds. So the next level is that I've been looking at all of the practices that we have and processes, and kind of going one through one. How can we automate this? Let's stop writing things down on paper because
Right.
that's risky. So we're doing right now time and attendance. I know that sounds pretty boring, but people write their time cards down on a piece of paper. their supervisors approve it, we rekey it into the system. So very, very inefficient. And so with this new system, it will all be electronic. You know, the employee will maybe do a thumbprint on a time clock or input it into a computer. It'll come to the supervisor and they will approve it, and then it will just be uploaded into the system. So less keystrokes. So
Cool.
it is very cool, very efficient for us. It's in the cloud, obviously, this software provider. But if we look at the end users that I'm dealing with, there are department heads. So now they can go in, they can take a look at their budgets, and they can know exactly how much money they have there, so they can make really good decisions, see what's going on. And our employees can know what's going on with their relationship with the town, how often they've worked, et cetera. And if you look at our budget, it's 46 million, a little less than half of that belongs to the town, the other half to the Board of Ed. And of the town's piece, half of that is related to people's employment or benefits with the town. So just in this initiative alone, we're really strengthening how we keep track of our records. We're making sure the employees come to work, they're gaining confidence with us that that their time and attendance is being properly tracked. So to kind of just wrap that up of how that improves our controls, it's we're looking at things now before they happen as opposed to being reactive to after they happen. We're approving before as opposed to spending first and then approving it. The efficiencies that we are gaining are unbelievable, and I'm sure you've been on this show talking about some of the things that we've done in the past, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily understand the implementation. I just get to talk about the good results.
Exactly.
And so, we're going to save lots of time and effort. The first step will allow us to really focus on continuing to make our controls better, but ultimately, we're going to be able to do more with less people, more systematic infrastructure, and ultimately maybe we can reduce staff, and that saves us money, and we can obviously prudently manage our budgets. And then finally, just from an accountability standpoint, if folks are able to get their information real time, they're going to make some pretty good decisions, and there's going to be no excuses. What's going on with your budget, it's right there for all to see. And so I think it's, that strategy is certainly really great for finance, but I'm sure Carl at some other point will talk about what we're doing in other areas of the town as well.
Go ahead, Pete.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Would you guys mind sticking around for another segment?
Oh, sure.
We'll be right back.
Okay.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. Already posted it.
And good evening and welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. Sitting here with Leanne Palladino from the town of Old Saybrook, who's the finance director. Leanne, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
And Carl Fortuna, who's the first selectman of the town of Old Saybrook. Sir, welcome back, my friend. And Carl, let's open up this segment talking about what's going on in the town of Old Saybrook.
Couple things. We just finished up our sidewalk project that we allocated $250,000 to. One of the things I tend to focus on with you is the competitive environment we're in. We are competing with other towns to have people come live in our towns. Right. A lot of people are not moving into the state of Connecticut, so we're actually competing with where are people going to move and how do we keep our house prices at a level that people aren't losing money on their houses. So I've really tried to focus on quality of life, and we did a sidewalk project this year, and we got a lot of sidewalks done all along Old Boston Post Road, which was in awful shape, and a lot of children used those sidewalks to go to the Goodwin School and the middle school. And hopefully next year we'll get all the way down to Saybrook Point and fix every sidewalk on the way down there. That'll probably be about $100,000 more, but it's very doable. We have a lot of sidewalks on Route 1 that are in desperate need of repair, and then a few other places. So to me, it's all, I think I just hit your mic there, but to me, it's all about people coming to Old Saybrook and saying, this town is great. This town is clean, it looks good, it's walkable, it's bikeable, and people have a feel when they come to the town. Leanne and I, she was just talking about time and attendance software, and she was talking about the e-finance accounting module that we purchased. But we're also working on next year's budget, the FY20 budget, which we're talking about a budget that concludes in a year and a half. A lot is going to change over the course of the next year and a half. We have a new governor and a new legislature, Pete.
Yeah.
That's something we frequently talk about on this show.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have frequently had Commissioner Redeker on your show.
Exactly.
And whether he is replaced or not, he's been a great DOT commissioner. And the state would be lucky to continue to have him on. But that being said, you have, and I've said this on your show before, if Old Saybrook, if the state of Connecticut is not successful, Old Saybrook is going to struggle to be successful. We need a state with strong finances, and we need a state that grows its economy. I come in here and I don't want to be a negative nabob, or as William Safire said, you ever hear what he said? Negative nabob, I forget what he said. But in any event, I'm worried. The state needs to grow its economy. And that's the only way we're going to get out of this mess. The state right now is 90%, the state economy is 90% the size it was in 2006. Okay? Think about the lost revenue just in terms of the size of the economy. That's probably about the size of the deficit that we have right now. Wow. So there's a Democratic legislature and a Democratic governor, and I wish them all, I'm a Republican in town, I wish them all well, because we need answers and we need them implemented. But is the answer legalization of marijuana? Is the answer sports betting online, that you're going to be able to bet on the Giants game this coming weekend? That's going to bring in some money, but is it going to grow the economy? And that's what we have to start looking at. I think you're also going to have tolls in the state of Connecticut, and that probably at the end of the day makes sense. 60% of the drivers in the state of Connecticut are from out of state, right? So they'll pay their fair share. And you're going to have an increase in the minimum wage. I think that's baked in the cake with this new legislature. And they're also talking about a paid family medical leave program, okay? Which is a wonderful concept. It's got to be paid for, though. And the way they're paying for it, the new legislature is proposing to pay for it, is a tax on workers, on private worker, people like you, Pete, who work in the private sector. My concern is that while these are all fine-sounding ideas, a higher minimum wage, good idea. Paid family medical leave, a wonderful thing. Free college tuition, a wonderful thing. We need to grow the economy. Those are programs that are very good, but what are they doing at the end of the day other than providing good things to a number of people? But if we don't have enough people paying taxes in the state of Connecticut, we're not going to get ourselves out of this fiscal mess. Every 2 years, we're in a fiscal mess, and even more often than that. And I've expressed it a number of times on this show. That's my concern. As first selectman in the town of Old Saybrook, I look at the state. We need the state to be successful. Governor Lamont, I wish him well. I mean, I think he comes in saying all the right things right now. I think he comes from private sector, from the private sector economy. He started a business. And I hope he is one of the best governors the state of Connecticut has ever had. And I hope he's there for as long as he wants to be, if he can get this state right where it needs to be. And I say that not as a Republican or as a Democrat, but as a resident of the state of Connecticut.
Leanne, do you have something you'd like to add?
Well, I agree with everything that Carl said.
Okay.
And, from the perspective from the state, the difference between a state and a municipal budget is that, state budgets are very, sensitive to what goes on in the economy, whereas a municipality's budget, we figure out what the budget is and we tax the people based on that. So to the extent that the economy turns down, which it will at some point in the future, sales taxes aren't going to be coming in as expected. The stock market isn't going to be booming as expected, so we can't count on capital gains and other things. And then ultimately the hard decisions have to get made at the state level when things don't come in as expected, and sometimes it falls on the shoulders of municipalities, which is, I'm sure you've talked about that a lot here. So very, very important to grow the economy and grow the sources of income organically, not from one-time revenues.
So Pete.
Yes.
How about you? How's the Ronald McDonald House? Last time I was in here, we did a reverse interview.
That's right.
What do you have going on in your volunteerism?
We actually we've got a lot going on since the last time you and I saw each other. We did our event. We did our community give back night at Luigi's this past October.
Right. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we're doing another one in the spring with Alex at Penny Lane.
Oh, right. Very
good. And then
good.
we're going to do Luigi's again next October as well.
So you need to get me your notices of those events.
Yes.
And we will put them on our electronic signboards.
Okay.
And we'll put them on our town website, and because we can advertise for nonprofits.
I didn't realize you could do that.
So you need to make sure that the town of Old Saybrook has an opportunity to promote that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I can definitely do that.
But other than that, we're at work, just getting the budget set. We head into the budget season very early in January. We try to finish it with our main meetings in early April, go to referendum in May,
Okay.
and then look at the summer for projects. Leanne is very project oriented.
Lots of things to do at the town.
And I don't know how much time we have, Pete, but the other big idea, over the course of the next 5 years, Governor Lamont has said this several times, he is looking at consolidation. He's looking at regionalism.
Okay.
The town of Old Saybrook has to start looking internally first to see where we can combine with other departments, whether it's the Board of Ed or maybe we share resources with another town. We need to take a look at that and to determine if there should be one nerve center in town, not two, Board of Ed and town, right? So the town of Madison, I know, has one finance director. Maybe that is something the town of Old Saybrook looks at for a 5-year plan or a 6 or 7 year plan. Right. When we talk about consolidation, we don't talk about losing full-time employment. Ultimately, attrition happens. People retire, they move on, and that is when you need to strike at the moment and see if there's efficiencies that you can gain. So we are always looking at that. I think the taxpayers demand it.
Right.
As I say, a lot of people in Old Saybrook, the average age is 55. They're not making more money. A lot of them are retirees.
Exactly.
We're always looking to gain efficiencies in town.
Speaking of things in town and being 55, how's Poston Main holding up?
Poston, Maine is doing well. In fact, I'm going to a little holiday party at 5 o'clock, I think, this Thursday to meet the new owners. It was purchased. Yeah, so Poston, Maine is doing quite well. They're pretty full up. The bowling alley, the former bowling alley, which is going to be an Agway and a Dunkin' Donuts, the demo permit has come in, so there's going to be a lot of changes going on there. And there's a couple other projects in town that people are, they're always sniffing around and kicking the tires, and stuff happens eventually. It takes time.
It does.
We are going to be putting in, I think I talked about this last time, Pete, a tax increment financing district.
What is it?
The short version
Yes.
is you take a portion of the taxes that people pay and you allocate them to a district. So we have a Mariners Way district, okay?
Right.
It's a geographical spit of land. Those people pay taxes now. As taxes increase, hopefully ever so slightly,
Yes.
A portion of that increase, an increment of that tax increase, will be designated solely for that district. So the town would have a sinking fund. We would take the increment and we would be able to reinvest it, perhaps in sidewalks, perhaps in engineering, to make the road a better road. We're talking, did you ever hear of the word road diet?
No.
So you have a road that's a really wide Route 1 road, let's say,
Okay.
75 feet, could be 90 feet,
And they shrink it.
and you shrink it.
There you
And
go.
that way you can get some bike paths so people can walk and bike out on Mariners Way, because it's a really beautiful area. You can see parts of the estuary and Connecticut River out there. So we're trying to make some changes out there to grow the tax base. There's always talk of additional development out at Ferry Point.
All right. Leanne Palladino from the town of Old Saybrook, thanks for coming down.
Thank you for having me.
Carl Fortuna from the town of Old
Hey,
Saybrook,
happy
thanks for
holidays.
Hey, happy holidays.
Yes,
Hey,
happy
Happy New
holidays
Year.
to you
Thank
too.
you.
Yes.
On behalf of Carl Fortuna, Leanne Palladino, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.